And now that it is the bye week, I think we need to discuss this season to this point, everything we've seen, specifically this week, the things that we don't like, I think are what we need to discuss. And there is a national discourse going around with the pundits in particular who have seen one idiot on the internet say they want to fire Josh Heupel and have generalized that as the entire population of Tennessee fans, saying they want to fire Josh Heupel because he lost at home to Oklahoma and is now 6-3 and is no longer in playoff contention. The national media pundits are at it again. They're trying to pretend like Tennessee fans want something that they really don't want to happen. It's not just, one person. It's Dan Wolken, it's Josh Pate, it's Pat Forty. All the usual suspects are back at it again. And I don't think any sane Tennessee fan wants that. Now, let's be honest. There are some things that need to be adjusted within the program. There are some things that I think we have spotted that have kept Tennessee from potentially doing better things this season. And I think those changes will be made at some point. I think the frustration is this staff has not learned from its mistakes in 5 years and could be in a better spot overall. Because, look, Josh Heupel has done a good job managing this program. Recruiting is some of the best it's been since he's been here. Let's call that like it is. You are excited about what you have coming down the pipe in the future. So I don't think any rational fan anyway, is saying that Tennessee needs to fire Josh Heupel. That's just not at all the case.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, do people forget what Tennessee was like before Josh Heupel? I mean, that was almost like a good 15 years of just the most pitiful football you could watch.
That's what they want you to say. That's what they want you to. That's what the national media pundits want you to say. But the reality is, none of us around Tennessee actually think that.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, I've seen a couple people voice their opinions on not wanting Josh Heupel to return, but I mean, it's just craziness to even throw that around. I mean, I will say this: I don't think Tennessee should fire Josh Heupel, but I think we got to monitor how he's going to be playing over the next couple seasons, because there's not really going to be any more excuses left once Faison Brandon comes in, Gabriel Ascenda, all of them. I mean, if you can't take it to the next level within the next 3 years and you continue to go only win 10 games, I mean, it's what do you want Tennessee to be viewed as at that point? Do you want Tennessee to be one of the better teams, or do you want Tennessee to be the best team competing for a national championship? And from what I've heard from my dad and everything back in the day is, I mean, Tennessee used to be feared amongst everybody. Tennessee used to be considered one of those blue blood powerhouses and stuff. And Tennessee's they're going to have talented enough teams over the next few seasons that should be able to compete for a national championship. But I don't think Josh Heupel should be fired anytime soon. But maybe in 3 years, if he can't get the job done, maybe then. But I think Tennessee's issues, most of them aren't stemming from Josh Heupel. If they are stemming from Josh Heupel, I think it's from him being too friendly of a guy. He needs to make some changes with the coaching staff. I think Tim Banks is worn out his welcome here at Tennessee at this point, and need to get a new defensive coordinator. I don't know what's going on in the practices, like I've said several times, but hopefully he's punishing the players, having some rough conditioning practices and everything like that. But I don't know. There's some issues there with Tennessee for sure, but I don't think you solve them by firing Josh Heupel. I think that sets the university and the program back, sets it back to where it was, and that's the last thing Tennessee needs right now.
No, absolutely not. And I think the reality is with this team is there do need to be changes made. Let's call that like it is. I think you have to figure some things out within the staff. I think too, but before I get into those changes, Josh Heupel has not successfully developed a quarterback he has recruited out of high school here. He recruited Nico. Nico did not perform well and is at UCLA now. Everybody else that has come into this system has been a transfer. So we're going to see what happens this offseason if say, Merklinger hangs around. Honestly, I think George McIntyre in the games has looked better between the two of them. Merklinger has struggled in garbage time, which is not something you want to see from your backup quarterback. And then, of course, Faison is another guy that you got coming in here in the near future. So you are going to be judged on how those guys do, I think. But if you do get 4 or 5 years down the road and you're still just like an 8 to 10 win team every year, then you're going to be lumped into the conversation with Mark Richt and James Franklin of just never being able to turn the corner at Tennessee. So you're not there yet, but you keep doing the same things over and over again, and I think you will get there at some point. It's just not now. But I think the real reason why Tennessee is stuck in this spot right now and feeling kind of the hard feelings right now toward Josh Heupel is that he's got way too much on his plate. He is doing some things he does not need to be doing. And one of which, and I hate to say it because I do think his offense is very good when it is working, is play calling. Because when you're play calling as a head coach, sometimes your attention can be so hyper focused on that aspect of the game, and you're just not able to manage the game as well as you would like to. Like I just think, because we've said it all year, Tennessee's game management, aside from Kentucky because it didn't matter, was so poor all across the SEC games this year. It's not been good. I think he has to, delegate that responsibility to somebody else, whether it be Joey Halsley or some guy that he brings in. Now, I think he will still demand that that offense is the offense Tennessee runs from here on out under him. But I don't think that's a problem because it's been successful in the past with Alex Golish. He just doesn't need to be the one calling the shots anymore, I don't think. And you look, too, across college football, this is another discourse that has been had across the internet here recently, particularly with Steve Sarkisian at Texas. But there are just not many head coaches in recent memory that have called their own plays and won national championships. It puts a limit on what you can do, and I think we are seeing that to an extent with Josh Heupel. So I think a lot of the fan base would be at ease if he were to give that to somebody else. I think, too, is if he gives it to somebody else and they don't do a good job of it, he could just be like, well, guess what? This is what you guys wanted, so don't blame me. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're making a lot of good points there. Like, I'd never really thought about the fact of Josh Heupel, being the one calling the plays and that possibly limiting him in his coaching and everything. But I mean, I can see it more now that you brought that to my attention. I mean, it's got to be hard focusing, making adjustments on defense, like doing things like managing the clock and all this stuff when your focus is just making the correct play call every single time. I mean, it probably is a lot of pressure on Josh Heupel.
Yeah.
And like you with Joey Halsey and stuff, I mean, maybe they could benefit from having him do play calls. I mean, he's been in the system. I mean, he knows how the offense runs. Josh Heupel doesn't necessarily have to call the plays. I mean, if you hire these guys onto your coaching staff, then you got to think that you trust them a little bit. And then, of course, if things go south during the game, then hand the reins back to Josh Heupel. I don't know if that's that could be a logistics issue with play calling. If you get used to hearing from one coach and then the other one steps in, I don't know anything about that. But if there's no issues with that, then, I mean, he could always just step back in and call a couple of plays. But they're going to have to make adjustments somehow. And, I mean, I like I said earlier, I think it starts with firing Tim Banks, which if Josh Heupel does that, I think that it could help him in the future make other tough decisions, which I think is something that he's been struggling with for a while, is to make the tough calls that he needs to do, because I think he likes being viewed as a good guy. And from everything I've seen, Josh Heupel seems like a phenomenal person, phenomenal human being. Like, obviously, you see the way that he talks to these players, that he genuinely cares about them. Like, he's not just trying to win with them and discard them like they're nothing. I mean, he seems to genuinely care about everyone. But I mean, I feel at times you got to be the bad guy, even if you don't want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like he's Brian Kelly just out there, just being like, what the bleep was that? Put the headset back up. No, that's not at all who he is. And I think that does go a long way with your players, but I think with your coaching staff, you do have to have some decisions at some point. And I think if he were to give the play calling duties to Joey Halzle, that would be great for Joey Halzle just to grow as a coach. I look back at the Tennessee Titans' latest mistake hiring. I'm going to make some comparisons here with the changes that Tennessee should make with the Titans and what not to do. They hired a guy in Brian Callahan who was an offensive coordinator but hadn't called plays in Cincinnati. And then he comes down to Tennessee and starts calling plays and it goes poorly. I think if you were to get Joey Halzle involved in that could help him out as, potentially carving a path as a head coach somewhere down the line. He's right now, it's not as if he's doing nothing. He's helping out the quarterbacks and doing some stuff in that regard, just during practices. But I think it could help him out a lot. I think Joey Halzle does have a future. It's just, if Heupel can hand him those reins, he can really advance his status as a coach around the league. Now, with play calling too, you've seen this problem with the Titans in the past as well with Mike Vrabel, because he called his own plays in 2020 as a defensive coordinator, and the defense was terrible that year. And he fired himself from that role and gave it to somebody else. I think that's what Heupel should do here. He should just focus on the game management stuff, the stuff that Tennessee is lacking in a little bit right now. The Banks discourse is interesting because, again, you're coming off a game that Tennessee actually did all right in defensively up until the final, 20 minutes of the game. So you did okay in that game. I think some of the problems right now with Tennessee on the defensive end involve both lack of personnel, particularly at defensive tackle and safety, which are areas they're going to need to attack in the portal. And then injuries. Corners have been hurt all year for this team. You've had some injuries at defensive tackle as well, which you were already thin at. And I think that the basic fundamentals do have to get better with this team. I don't know who that is to blame necessarily. Do you blame the players? Do you blame the coaches in that scenario? We'll see what happens with Tim Banks. A part of me thinks Heupel could avoid that just because of, the injuries and lack of personnel, and just not having the depth where you want it to be. But I also think, this is a guy that if he was going to take a head coaching job, he would have done it over the last 2 seasons. His stock has cooled down significantly from what it was.
Yeah, I mean, the injuries definitely play a factor. Tennessee's defense struggling. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'm wondering why all these injuries have happened in the first place. Because I've watched Tennessee play for a long time now at this point. Since 2009, I've never seen Tennessee players drop like flies like they have been. And I know it's just a theory, but I feel like it's got to do with practice, man. I feel like it's got to do with practice. And I'll use a personal example. Like my first year, 3 years of high school, we barely ever were out of full pads. Like we would do Thursday practices and just uppers, and that was just about it. Then we get a new coach my senior year. We have a lot less padded practices. We still do play, don't get me wrong, but our practices were way easier than they were the first 3 years. And even I got injured, and I never got hurt my entire football career up until that point. Until my senior year, I broke my finger and I sprained my ankle. And I just feel like you're more likely to get injured. Like if you're not going rough if you're not used to game speed, you're not out there going rough and hitting pads. I think you're setting yourself up for injuries. And that's my theory that I've been thinking about the entire season with Tennessee's defense. Like I would love to be able to fly at a wall at one of these practices, see what's going on. But I almost guarantee you that there's not a lot of hitting going on.
Yeah, that's one thing I wonder about as well. And, I think so much of it is just trying to keep these guys healthy because no one's ever 100%. But It is something that worries me a little bit, but we'll see what this team does with the defensive staff. I think there are changes coming to the staff in general this offseason, but I don't know if that is one of them in particular. I would hope the play calling thing is for Heupel's sake.